ladies. Good morning. I'm happy to get going. Don't you love that word? Adelante. It means move your butts. And I'm so glad we're all here because I always say, if you stay home and do nothing, 100% guaranteed nothing will happen. If you show up, hey, 50-50. So you have to be open to an aha. So I hope you're all open to it. You know, I decided to write this book, Self-Made, because I know God and our parents make us. But what I've learned in my life is that if you don't DIY yourself from the inside out all the time, you're not going to make it. You know, we talk about all the things that are wrong with the world, and God knows we've just been through so much this weekend, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. But if we're not self-reliant, if we don't take charge of our lives, if we don't take the crumbs that are out there, turn lemons into lemonade, we're not going to make it. And so I'm going to try to tell you a little bit about my story, and then I will share with you what I wish I knew when I was 18 years old that I know now. So we all get on the horse and get there quicker. So you already heard I'm an immigrant, which I'm so proud to say I'm an immigrant with everything that happened this weekend. How many immigrants are in the audience? More CEOs in America are immigrants than anyone else. Not only am I an immigrant, I'm a political refugee. And I don't think we say that enough, that bad things happen. The same way that bad things are happening here right now, bad things happen to people around the world. And from one day to the next, we have to leave, and we lose everything. I want to just take a moment to send my condolences to everyone that has suffered this weekend with all these mass shootings, particularly in El Paso with the whole immigrant situation. When I came to this country, I was blessed because an American family sponsored my family here in the late 60s. And that family had lost 2 sons in Vietnam. And Mrs. Krebs and her husband, Gene, were told by their pastor in order to heal because they were devastated, they were suicidally depressed. Why don't you do service and bring a family from Cuba and sponsor them? And so we lived with this very conservative white family in southern New Jersey who took us in, who loved us. And I believe everything that I'm going to tell you that happened in my career and in my life was all because the way I entered this country was so loving. And it made me so proud and happy to be an American. Thank you to that family. So I want to honor them today, and they're my guiding light with everything that's happening, that we as Americans can make a difference and we can change people's lives and we can figure all this out. So let me tell you how that woman, when I watched that tape, I go, that woman has a beastly voice. Well, let me just tell you, I am naturally an introvert. I've never been, I'm not an athlete. I'm not Beyonce or J-Lo. I started out as an intern. I worked my way up. So if I could do everything I'm going to tell you that I did, all of you have no excuse, and you can do it too. I think that entrepreneurial spirit, which again, I'm glad that Natalie talked about this before, it doesn't have to be that all of us leave our job and go start a business. It's a spirit. It's self-made is a mindset that you are working for yourself the rest of your life. It doesn't matter if you work for others or not, and we're going to talk about that. For me, that mindset started in the 7th grade. After the Krebs brought us to this country and really helped us, we still went through very difficult, hard times. My parents lost everything. And in the 7th grade, my parents had sent me to all-girl Catholic school because they thought it was the best school where we lived. But they couldn't afford it. And I would overhear them at night, like all kids that are immigrants and that have parents that have gone through a lot. We're just empathetic. We listen to our parents and we feel bad for them. And I would hear my mother say, ¿Qué vamos a hacer? What are we going to do? No podemos pagar la escuela. We can't afford the school. And my father would say to her, no te preocupes, don't worry. Jesus will help us. He will get us the money. And I go, Jesus doesn't know the head none. And I would get that, that adrenaline rush you get when you're like afraid. And I'd be so afraid to be called to the nun's office, to be kicked out of the school. So I started thinking, how can I help my parents? And there was this older lady, American lady that lived down the street, and she sold Avon. And she had said to me once, honey, why don't you sell Avon out of your locker and I'll give you some free lipstick? And I thought, forget the free lipstick, I need help. So I went to see her and I said, listen, I'll sell Avon, but it's got to be 50-50. I had seen that on a TV show. And she's like, okay, we'll split the money, no problem. And in the first week I sold Avon in the 7th grade out of my locker, I made $200. What can I tell you? Immigrants are good salespeople. And after a month, I had made $800. And I went to the head nun and I gave her the money and I'm like, I felt so successful. And then I go, uh-oh, my dad is a Latino macho guy. He's going to feel so bad if he finds out that I'm paying for school. So I tell the nuns, you got to write me a letter, make something up, a scholarship, a grant, I don't know, whatever. And I get this letter and I bring it home to my parents and my mother opens it up and my mother barely speaks English and certainly doesn't. She goes, ¿Qué dice la carta? What does it say? And my father goes, oh my God, your daughter is a genius and Jesus helped us after all. And I always think that was a marker moment in my life. I want you all to think today, what were the marker moments of your life that began shifting you? Because I believe life is a puzzle that reveals itself slowly in these marker moments. For me, that marker moment was like, okay, I can fix any problem. It was also kind of bittersweet because I think I lost my childhood at that moment. I stopped being a little girl that could be taken care of by her parents. And I had to be the leader of the family, like so many of us. Does that relate to many of you in the audience? So that was a big moment for me. I think most of our marker moments have this combination of pain and empowerment. And we have to really write them down because they are kind of like, if you connect the dots of all of them, you see everything clearly about your life. The next marker moment was in sophomore year of the same all-girl Catholic, now high school. Can you tell I have issues with this Catholic school? In my sophomore year, I wrote a story for school and from my favorite nun, who was my English teacher. And she said to me, you know, Nely, I'm very concerned. I don't think you wrote the story. I think it's an Ernest Hemingway story. It took place in Cuba in a fishing village. I think she thought it was The Old Man in the Sea, whatever. I was like, how could this lady ever think that I would ever cheat? Me, Miss Goody Two-Shoes introvert. But she suspended me from school for 3 days. And she sent me home. And when I went and told my parents, La monja me suspendió, the nun suspended me, my mother goes, oh my God, get on your hands and knees and beg forgiveness. I think many of us don't realize that when you come from multicultural families, traditional families, they're scared. They don't want to rock the boat. They tell their kids all the time, lay low, you know, don't talk, be cool. And it's like a trauma from having left your country and being so grateful to be here. And I was like, Mom, are you kidding me? I didn't do anything wrong. No, pida perdón, ask for forgiveness. So I got so mad at my mother that I did the only thing a teenager could do in that moment before the internet. I wrote an article to 17 magazine about why you should never send your daughter to all-girl Catholic school. And I mailed it. 3 days later, I go back to school, and the nun goes, oh my God, you know, your story was really good. It wasn't The Old Man in the Sea after all. And she said, I'm giving you an A+, and the whole thing blew over. 3 months later, I get a letter in the mail from 17 magazine with a $100 check. We're publishing your story. No! No! I go, what did I know? I go to the newsstand and I buy every copy. I don't really get the drift, you know? And I go to school that day and all the girls are gossiping about me. Did you read the article? Because I trashed the school. In a funny way, but I trashed the school. And you know, in life, beware of your biggest fear because it will happen. I get called over the loudspeaker to go to the nun's office. And she sits me down and she's like, I'm sorry, young lady, but we don't like your type here. Now imagine, I was in this very white school, 2 Latino families, 1 African-American family, that's it. And she expelled me. And I had to go home, you don't even want to know, and tell the Latino parents, ay, me botaron de la escuela, they kicked me out of the school. My mother goes, Dios mío, why us? Why? Because Latinos are very quiet unless they're yelling at their kids. Why do you do this to us? Why? You must beg forgiveness. It was horrible. And I was first I got like sad and I felt bad, and then I felt angry at my parents. Because I felt like, how could I be studying the women's movement in school? I was the first generation post-women's movement. How could I be studying about Martin Luther King and about rights and about, and then my parents are so wimpy. So you're going to find out from my stories I'm a little impulsive. I decide to call the Board of Ed of the state of New Jersey. And thank God. I'm a Libra. Libras are very into justice. We know that. I call, and thank you, God, an African-American man answers. And I said, is this right? Is this fair? And for the first time in my life, I heard an adult that was a person of color that was more empowered than my parents. And he kind of took my side, and he goes, you know what? You're right. But guess what? The nuns can get away with it because it's a private school. They can just kick you out for no reason if they want to. He goes, but you can do something about it. Why don't I call a reporter from the local paper? And I don't know what I was thinking, but I'm like, okay. And thank God for that African-American man. And I want us all to think about that. Who is in our communities or in our friends, around us that are our friends, that are more empowered than we are, that we can learn from? And I went and did this article with this reporter, and the next day it comes out in the paper, Cuban girl gets expelled for First Amendment issue. I didn't even know it was a First Amendment issue. Imagine today with the social media and all that, I would have been Malala practically. Anyway, so the thing comes out, and my parents lose it. Like, this is it. I think they're literally going to kill me. They're like, pero are you like Che Guevara or what? Did we raise a revolutionary? Like, what the heck? And they're like freaking out, and they're making funny stories like, you turned out like my cousin from Cuba. I mean, I'm like the best. And the nun, to make it worse, the head nun calls us. And she goes, come to the school right away with your parents. Okay, the Latinos in the room. Can you imagine the car ride from the house? I mean, literally. We get to the school, and what happens? The nun is in a good mood. She's really nice. And she's like, I didn't say we were expelling you. I just said we didn't like your behavior. We've looked at your records. You're such a good student. You're an AP student. You're even ahead with all your credits. In fact, you're such a good student, we're going to graduate you 1.5 years early. And my parents are like, this is good, right? I go, very good. It went right over their head. Then I come home, and this is going to tell you how old I am. We had a voice box, right? And we play back the recordings of the voicemails, and there's a message from 17 magazine. And they say, Nely, we are so proud of you that this story has created a problem for you, that you went and fought and did a story in the paper. We are so proud of you for fighting for your rights.